A story about legacy, friendship, and the power of saying goodbye. It was 1989. The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson had been on the air for 27 years. Johnny Carson was an American icon. His show was legendary, but one particular guest appearance would be different from all the others. Dean Martin was there for what everyone would later realize was his final appearance on the show. He was older now, not as physically strong as he once was, but his spirit was still there. And what he said that night made Johnny Carson break down in tears. Not tears of sadness about something that had happened, but tears of emotion about something precious and irreplaceable. This is a story about two legends saying goodbye, about the power of gratitude, about looking back on a life and understanding what really mattered. Two legends at the end of an era. To understand this story, you need to understand the relationship between Dean Martin and Johnny Carson. They weren't just professional acquaintances. They were friends who respected each other deeply. Johnny Carson *** had become a national institution. He started hosting The Tonight Show in 1962, and for nearly 3 decades, he had been part of America's nightly routine. Millions of people turned on their televisions at 11:30 p.m. to watch Johnny. He was the gateway between the end of people's days and their sleep. He was trusted. He was loved. He was considered a national treasure. Johnny had interviewed thousands of guests. He had seen the best and worst that show business had to offer. He had been present at countless memorable moments. His show had launched careers and revived others. The Tonight Show was more than just a talk show. It was an American institution. Dean Martin *** had been a guest on Johnny's show many times over the years. Dean was one of the most successful entertainers in history. He had been part of the Rat Pack. He had made classic movies. He had performed in Las Vegas for decades. He had been a television star. He had lived a life that most people could only dream of. But by 1989, Dean was 73 years old. His body was showing the wear and tear of decades of performing. He had survived health problems. He had lost some of the physical vitality that had defined him as a younger man. Still, his mind was sharp. His charm was intact. His ability to make people laugh and feel comfortable was still there. In 1989, Dean agreed to make one more appearance on The Tonight Show. He didn't know it would be his last. But looking back, everyone would understand that something profound was happening. The week of the appearance, there was electricity in the NBC studios. Word had spread that Dean Martin was coming on the show. The staff was excited. The audience would be packed. This was going to be a special night. Johnny was in his office before the show, preparing for the evening. One of his producers told him that Dean was in the building. Johnny smiled. He genuinely looked forward to interviewing Dean. They had always had great chemistry. Dean was in his dressing room, being prepared by the makeup team. He was looking at himself in the mirror, thinking about his life, thinking about all the appearances he had made on this show, thinking about how many times he had sat across from Johnny Carson and made people laugh. "You nervous?" one of the makeup artists asked. "No," Dean said simply. "I've done this 100 times. But tonight feels different somehow. Special." The audience filed into the studio. The theme music played. Johnny came out to his desk and waved to the crowd. The audience applauded. This was the ritual that had happened almost every weeknight for decades. Then Johnny introduced Dean Martin. "Ladies and gentlemen," Johnny said warmly, "one of the greatest entertainers in the history of show business, a man I've been honored to call a friend for many years, Dean Martin." The audience erupted in applause. Dean walked out slowly, carefully, but with dignity. He shook Johnny's hand firmly, and they embraced like old friends who had seen each other through the years. When looking back became looking forward, Dean sat down across from Johnny. The audience continued applauding. Johnny and Dean smiled at each other. There was a warmth between them that the audience could feel. "Dean," Johnny began, in his typical interviewing style, "it's great to have you here. It's been a while. How are you doing?" "I'm doing fine, John," Dean said. "I'm here. That's something to be grateful for." There was something in the way Dean said it that made Johnny pause. It wasn't just casual conversation. It was something deeper. For the next hour, they talked. They told stories. They laughed. They reminisced about the old days. Dean talked about his career. He talked about his friends. He talked about Sammy and Frank and the Rat Pack days. But gradually, the tone of the interview shifted. Johnny asked Dean about his legacy, about what he wanted to be remembered for. Dean was quiet for a moment. In a world where he had always been quick with a joke or a charm offensive, he suddenly became serious. You know, Johnny, Dean said slowly, I've had an incredible life. I've made movies. I've sung. I've made people laugh. I've made a lot of money. I've been famous. I've had all the things people say they want. Johnny waited. He sensed something important was coming. But if I'm being honest, Dean continued, the thing I'm most proud of isn't any of that. It's the people I've called friends. It's the people who stood by me. It's the people I stood by when they needed me. Dean looked directly at Johnny. You know what I mean? Dean asked. Johnny nodded. He understood exactly what Dean meant. The entertainment, Dean said, that's nice. That's fun. But it's temporary. People forget performances. But they don't forget how you made them feel. They don't forget whether you showed up for them when it mattered. The studio had become very quiet. The audience sensed they were witnessing something genuine and profound. I spent a lot of years, Dean continued, worrying about being the best performer. Worrying about being funny enough, talented enough, successful enough. And I was good at those things. But I didn't always understand something important. What's that? Johnny asked gently. That the real performance, Dean said, the thing that really matters, is how you show up in your relationships. With the people you care about. With the people in your life. Dean paused. He was getting emotional now. His voice was wavering slightly. I've made some mistakes, Dean said. I've been selfish sometimes. I've been focused on myself when I should have been focused on the people who loved me. But when it came time to stand up for a friend, when it came time to do the right thing, I tried to be there. I tried to be the kind of friend that matters. Johnny was listening intently. The audience was barely breathing. And I got to have friendships that lasted decades, Dean said. Friendships that meant something. That's the legacy I care about. Not the movies or the records or the money. The friendships. Dean looked at Johnny. You've done something I think is incredible, Johnny, Dean said. You've invited thousands of people onto this show. You've given platforms to people who needed it. You've been generous with your time and your attention. And you've built something here that's really meaningful. People trust you. People love you. And it's because you're genuinely interested in people. You're genuinely kind. Johnny's eyes were starting to glisten. I want people to know, Dean continued, that one of the privileges of my life has been being invited onto this show so many times. Being treated with respect by you, Johnny. Being given a platform to do what I love. That's something I'm deeply grateful for. The audience applauded. But it wasn't enthusiastic applause. It was the kind of applause that came from emotion, from understanding that they were witnessing something meaningful. When gratitude became a gift. The interview continued, but everyone in the studio felt that something had shifted. The tone had changed from entertainment to something deeper, a conversation about life and what really matters. Johnny was emotionally affected. It was clear on his face. He was touched by what Dean had shared. When the interview ended, Johnny stood up and hugged Dean. Not a professional hug, but a real embrace between two people who respected each other and understood what life was really about. The audience gave Dean a standing ovation. People were on their feet. They were applauding not just his career, but the honesty he had shown. The vulnerability. The authenticity. As Dean left the stage, Johnny watched him go. And when the show ended and Johnny went to his office, he sat alone for a while, thinking about what Dean had said. Within a few months, Johnny would learn that Dean was seriously ill. By the end of 1989, it became clear that Dean's health was declining rapidly. He had asked for privacy, wanting to spend his remaining time with his family. Dean Martin died in December 1990. He was 75 years old. When Johnny heard the news, he was devastated. He had lost a friend. The entertainment industry had lost one of its greatest performers. The world had lost someone who had brought joy to millions of people. But what Johnny held onto was that last appearance. That conversation. That moment where Dean had shared his deepest thoughts about what really mattered in life. In the days and weeks after Dean's death, Johnny talked about that final appearance. He talked about what Dean had said. He talked about the generosity of Dean's words, the honesty of his reflection. Dean, Johnny said in one interview, used his last appearance on this show to remind all of us about what really matters. He reminded us that success and fame are nice, but they're not what make a life meaningful. Friendship, loyalty, showing up for people you care about, that's what matters. Johnny's voice broke when he talked about it. He was crying, not just because Dean was gone, but because Dean had given him such a powerful gift in those final moments. The conversation between Dean and Johnny became legendary. People quoted Dean's words. They referenced the appearance. It became one of the most remembered moments in the history of The Tonight Show. But more than that, it became a reminder to everyone watching that we should think about our legacies differently. Not in terms of money or fame or success, but in terms of the relationships we build, the people we stand by, the impact we have on others. Dean's final appearance had become his final gift to Johnny, to the audience, to everyone who watched it. He had given them something to think about, something to consider, a different way of understanding what makes a life valuable, what we leave behind when we're gone. This story teaches us something profoundly important that we often forget in our busy lives. Your legacy isn't what you achieved. Your legacy is how you treated people and the relationships you built. Dean Martin could have spent his final appearance talking about his career. He could have told more funny stories. He could have entertained. And that would have been fine. But instead, he used his time to talk about what really mattered. He used his platform to remind everyone that success without meaningful relationships is empty. He reminded us that the performances fade, but the connections we build last. Think about the people in your own life who have meant the most to you. Are they the people who were the most successful? Or are they the people who showed up for you when you needed them? The people who believed in you? The people who stood beside you? That's what Dean was saying. That's what he wanted people to understand. This story also teaches us, it's important to look back and appreciate what you've had. Dean spent his final appearance reflecting on his life. He didn't just talk about the big things he had accomplished. He talked about the smaller moments, the friendships, the times he had shown up, the people who had shown up for him. In our modern world, we're often focused on the next thing, the next achievement, the next goal. We rarely stop to appreciate what we already have. We rarely pause to feel gratitude for the people in our lives. But Dean understood something that only comes with age and wisdom. Looking back with gratitude is one of the most important things we can do, because it reminds us what really mattered. It reminds us what was worth our time and attention. There's also a lesson about vulnerability and authenticity. The most powerful moments often come when we let people see who we really are, not who we're performing to be. Dean Martin's entire career had been built on entertainment, on being funny, on being charming, on being the person who made others comfortable. But in that final appearance, he let people see something deeper. He let them see someone who was reflective, honest, and emotionally authentic. He let them see his real values, his real thoughts about what mattered. And that vulnerability was more powerful than any performance he could have given. In our lives, we often wear masks. We perform versions of ourselves that we think people want to see. We hide our real thoughts and feelings because we're afraid of judgment or rejection. But Dean showed us something important. When we're authentic, when we let people see who we really are, that's when we make a real impact. That's when we connect with people on a deeper level. There's also a lesson about gratitude and appreciation. It's important to tell people what they mean to you before it's too late. Dean took his final appearance as an opportunity to thank Johnny, to acknowledge what Johnny had done, to express appreciation for the platform and the friendship. How many people die without telling the people they care about how much those people meant to them? How many relationships go unexpressed? How many feelings of gratitude are never shared? Dean didn't make that mistake. He took his final appearance and used it to say thank you. To say I appreciate you. To say you've meant something in my life. That's something we can all do. We don't have to wait for a final appearance. We don't have to wait until it's too late. We can tell people now. We can express our gratitude. We can let people know that they matter. Finally, this story teaches us, the way we leave changes how we're remembered. Dean's legacy could have just been his movies and his music and his performances. But because of how he chose to leave, with honesty, with reflection, with gratitude, his legacy became bigger. It became about something deeper. The way we finish our conversations matters. The way we say goodbye matters. The way we acknowledge the people who have been important in our lives matters. Dean understood that he probably wouldn't be doing this again. He wasn't sure, but something told him that this was an ending. So he chose to make it meaningful. He chose to use that moment to remind people about what really counts. So here's the question for you. What will your legacy be? Not in terms of money or success or fame, but in terms of the people you've loved, the people you've stood by, the relationships you've built? Because that's what endures. That's what people remember. Not the accolades or the achievements, but the way you made them feel. The way you showed up. The difference you made in their lives. Dean Martin spent 7 decades as one of the greatest entertainers in history. But his final gift, the thing that moved Johnny Carson to tears, was a simple reminder that friendship, loyalty, and showing up for people matters more than anything else. That's a legacy worth having. That's a life worth living. Like and subscribe. This beautiful story about 2 legends and the power of gratitude and reflection just gave us all something important to think about. If Dean Martin's words about what really matters in life touched your heart, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to watch more stories about real people, real relationships, and what it truly means to live a meaningful life. In the comments below, tell us, who are the people in your life that have meant the most to you? Have you told them recently how much they mean to you? Share your story because it could inspire others to reach out and express their gratitude before it's too late. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss another story about love, friendship, and legacy. Subscribe now and join our community of people who believe that relationships are the real measure of a successful life. ****